Welcome back, Chicago Med fans! Whether you've been watching since season 1 or you just discovered the show, this video is your ultimate recap of everything that makes Chicago Med so powerful. We'll revisit the hospital's most unforgettable moments, dive into the lives of the doctors and nurses we've grown to love, relive some heartbreaking storylines, and finally, talk about one of the most emotional moments in the show's history, the return of Dr. Will Halstead. So, settle in, because this isn't just a recap. It's a trip back through years of laughter, tears, and drama at Gaffney Chicago Medical Center. Chicago Med begins by grounding itself in the heart of the emergency department at Gaffney Chicago Medical Center. The early seasons focus on establishing the high-pressure environment of a major urban hospital, where doctors and nurses are confronted with unpredictable medical emergencies. The show balances these high-stakes cases with overarching themes of hospital politics, financial pressures, and ethical medical debates. From the very beginning, it sets the tone that every decision, whether medical or administrative, has life-altering consequences, not only for patients but for the staff themselves. As the series progresses, the medical cases evolve from standalone emergencies into storylines that mirror real-world crises. Episodes highlight major public health concerns, such as infectious disease outbreaks, organ transplant controversies, and debates over new technologies in medicine. In later seasons, the show does not shy away from tackling headline issues like gun violence, the opioid epidemic, racial disparities in treatment, and even the global COVID-19 pandemic. This willingness to adapt to current events keeps the narrative fresh, while also grounding the drama in reality, reminding viewers that these challenges mirror what hospitals face every day. One of the key ongoing storylines of Chicago Med is the constant tug-of-war between patient care and hospital management. Sharon Goodwin, as the administrator, frequently embodies this struggle, forced to cut costs, navigate insurance hurdles, and deal with boardroom pressures while trying to preserve the hospital's mission of compassion. The series often pits the ideals of medical staff against the harsh realities of budget constraints, lawsuits, and media scrutiny. This conflict drives much of the tension, showing that the challenges of modern medicine extend far beyond the operating table. Another defining aspect of the series is its integration into the larger Chicago franchise. The ER is often the endpoint of cases from Chicago Fire or Chicago PD, with patients arriving directly from accidents, shootings, or rescue missions. Over time, crossovers have become a staple, weaving storylines that span multiple shows. These events give Chicago Med an added dimension, showing how first responders, law enforcement, and medical staff are interdependent. It also reinforces the idea that healthcare does not exist in isolation, but is part of a larger ecosystem within the city. While the early seasons leaned heavily on emergency-driven case-of-the-week storytelling, later seasons grew more serialized, with longer arcs that spanned multiple episodes or entire seasons. Themes of trust, systemic inequality, and the strain on healthcare workers became more pronounced. The introduction of COVID-19 in the storyline brought a raw and sobering tone, highlighting burnout, fear, and the resilience of medical staff. By expanding its focus from individual patient stories to broader societal issues, the series deepened its emotional impact and broadened its relevance. Across its run, Chicago Med has positioned itself as more than just a medical drama. It is a reflection of the complexities of modern healthcare. It portrays not only the urgency of saving lives, but also the systemic challenges that complicate even the simplest medical decisions. By combining high-stakes medical action with ongoing social commentary, it has carved out a unique identity within the crowded field of TV hospital dramas. The series ultimately serves as a tribute to healthcare workers, highlighting both their triumphs and the immense burdens they carry in the pursuit of saving lives. Chicago Med is the third series in NBC's legendary One Chicago franchise, alongside Chicago Fire and Chicago PD. And while the firehouse handles the blazes and PD catches the criminals, Med takes us into the place where it all comes together, the hospital. The beating heart of the show is the emergency department, or ED, where every shift feels like a battle. Patients flood in, gunshot victims from Chicago PD cases, firefighters burned in the line of duty, everyday people in crisis. And our team has to work under intense pressure, making life-and-death decisions in seconds. What makes Chicago Med stand out is that it doesn't just show us the medicine. It shows us the cost, the toll it takes on the doctors, the nurses, and even their families. It's raw, emotional, and always gives us something to think about long after the credits roll. Let's start with Dr. Will Halstead, the man who has been at the center of so many of Chicago Med's biggest moments. Will started out as an attending physician in the ED and quickly became known for his fiery temper and passion for doing what he thought was right, even if that meant breaking hospital rules. Over the seasons, we've seen him face one professional crisis after another, from being suspended for going against orders to being caught in the middle of dangerous situations, even putting his own career at risk to protect his patients. And of course, we can't forget his love story with Dr. Natalie Manning. Their relationship has been a roller coaster, from Will's failed proposal to Natalie's struggles with grief to the heartbreak of watching them drift apart. But no matter what, Halstead's character has always been about growth and redemption. Speaking of Natalie, Dr. Natalie Manning is one of the most compassionate doctors in the ED. As a pediatrician and emergency physician, her cases are often some of the most emotional. She's had to balance being a doctor and a single mom after losing her husband while he was serving overseas. Natalie has been a moral anchor for the team, but she's not perfect. Her controversial decision to secretly give her mother an experimental drug was one of her lowest points, nearly destroying her career and her relationship with Will. Still, fans have always rooted for her because her heart is always in the right place, even when she makes mistakes. Then we have Dr. Ethan Choi, the former Navy flight surgeon whose military background made him a strict, by-the-book doctor, at least in the beginning. Over time, we've seen him deal with PTSD, struggle with leadership, and eventually become ED chief, which put even more pressure on him. Ethan's relationship with April Sexton was another emotional highlight of the series. Their breakups and makeups reflected real-life struggles, commitment fears, trust issues, and the question of whether love can survive the stress of the job. Ethan's journey is one of resilience, a man who learned to open his heart again and find balance between duty and compassion. April Sexton, one of the ED's most skilled nurses, is the soul of the nursing team. She's been there from the start, holding the ED together during the worst crises. April has faced personal battles too, her own health scare with tuberculosis, her desire to start a family, and her complicated romance with Choi. April's storylines often show that nurses are just as heroic as doctors, often catching things first, comforting patients, and being the bridge between medicine and humanity. Dr. Crockett Marcel came in later, but quickly became a fan favorite. With his New Orleans charm and laid-back personality, he seemed too casual at first. But as we learned more about him, we saw the tragedy of his past, losing his young daughter to leukemia, and how that shaped him into a surgeon who cares deeply about giving patients every chance to live. Crockett's storylines have included romance, redemption, and some of the most high-stakes surgeries in the series. He's proof that sometimes the most carefree person has the heaviest burden to carry. And of course, there's Sharon Goodwin, the hospital's head of patient and medical services. She's not just a boss, she's a protector. Goodwin constantly fights to keep the hospital running despite budget cuts, board politics, and endless crises. She also serves as a mentor to the younger doctors, reminding them why they became physicians in the first place. Some of her best moments are when she stands up to the board to put patients first, even if it costs the hospital money. Finally, we have Dr. Daniel Charles, the brilliant psychiatrist who reminds us that medicine isn't just about broken bones and heart attacks, it's about the mind and soul, too. Charles's cases are some of the most thought-provoking, covering everything from schizophrenia to trauma to depression. He's the voice of wisdom in the ED, often guiding the others through moral dilemmas and personal crises. His friendship with Dr. Reese and later with his colleagues shows a softer side of the ED, one focused on healing, not just fixing. Over its many seasons, Chicago Med has delivered some of the most intense, emotional, and unforgettable storylines on television. The blackout episode where doctors had to manually ventilate patients to keep them alive. The pandemic storylines that mirrored real life and showed the fear, exhaustion, and heroism of frontline workers. The hospital shooting that put everyone's lives at risk. And of course, the complicated love triangles. Will and Natalie, Choi and April, Crockett and Natalie, keeping fans on the edge of their seats. But beyond the drama, these stories explore questions that stay with us. How far would you go to save a life? Can you bend the rules if it means saving someone? And what do you do when the cost of saving someone is losing yourself? Chicago Med is the third installment in Dick Wolf's Chicago franchise, following Chicago Fire and Chicago PD. The show is set in the emergency department of the fictional Gaffney Chicago Medical Center. It highlights not only the fast-paced life and death scenarios of emergency medicine, but also the personal struggles, moral dilemmas, and relationships of the doctors, nurses, and staff. At its core, the series balances medical drama with human emotion, showing how healthcare workers juggle compassion, professional boundaries, and their own complicated lives. The show introduces a diverse roster of doctors and nurses, each bringing their own strengths and vulnerabilities. Dr. Will Halstead, an emergency medicine physician, often finds himself torn between medical ethics and hospital politics, while his personal relationships, especially with Dr. Natalie Manning, are central to many story arcs. Dr. Connor Rhodes, a trauma surgeon with a privileged but troubled past, struggles to prove himself beyond his family's shadow. Nurse April Sexton represents the heart of the ER, balancing compassion with professionalism. Dr. Ethan Choi, a former Navy officer, brings discipline and strict standards, but often clashes with others due to his rigid approach. Over time, the ensemble grows with additions like Dr. Crockett Marcel, Dr. Daniel Charles, psychiatry, and Sharon Goodwin, the hospital administrator who often has to juggle financial realities against patient care. A major theme throughout Chicago Med is the conflict between medicine and morality. Doctors often face difficult choices, such as treating uninsured patients, dealing with medical errors, respecting patient autonomy, or battling pharmaceutical and insurance pressures. Another recurring element is teamwork. While personalities often clash, especially between surgeons and ER physicians, the staff must rely on each other when lives hang in the balance. The show also weaves in topical issues like gun violence, the opioid crisis, racial disparities in healthcare, and public health emergencies, making it feel socially relevant and grounded. Beyond the medical cases, the show dives deep into personal lives. Romantic entanglements, family struggles, and ethical dilemmas shape how characters grow. Will Halstead and Natalie Manning's on-and-off relationship is a long-running storyline filled with trust issues and conflicting career paths. Ethan Choi and April Sexton navigate love, commitment, and cultural differences. Dr. Daniel Charles provides wisdom while battling his own mental health struggles, showing the stigma even doctors face. Meanwhile, Sharon Goodwin must constantly balance her compassion as a nurse at heart with the cold financial decisions of administration. These storylines humanize the cast, reminding viewers that behind the scrubs are people facing real emotions and sacrifices. Dr. Halstead's exit was one of the most emotional moments in the series. After facing endless challenges, including clashes with hospital leadership and personal heartbreak, Will decided to leave Chicago and start over. His departure left a huge hole in the ED and in the hearts of fans. But now, the moment everyone's been waiting for, Dr. Will Halstead is back. His return promises new drama, heartfelt reunions, and fresh conflicts. How will he fit back into a department that has changed since he left? Will his relationship with Natalie finally find closure, or maybe a new beginning? Fans can expect Halstead to bring his trademark intensity, shake up the hospital dynamics, and remind everyone why he's one of the best doctors at Gaffney Chicago Medical Center. One of the unique aspects of Chicago Med is its crossover with Chicago Fire and Chicago PD. Emergency cases often begin with first responders bringing patients from fires, shootings, or accidents, linking the three shows seamlessly. Characters frequently cross over, strengthening the sense of a shared universe. This not only raises the stakes, but also shows how different city services depend on one another to save lives. One of the unique aspects of Chicago Med is its crossover with Chicago Fire and Chicago PD. Emergency cases often begin with first responders bringing patients from fires, shootings, or accidents, linking the three shows seamlessly. Characters frequently cross over, strengthening the sense of a shared universe. This not only raises the stakes, but also shows how different city services depend on one another to save lives. One of the unique aspects of Chicago Med is its crossover with Chicago Fire and Chicago PD. Emergency cases often begin with first responders bringing patients from fires, shootings, or accidents, linking the three shows seamlessly. Characters frequently cross over, strengthening the sense of a shared universe. This not only raises the stakes, but also shows how different city services depend on one another to save lives. Chicago Med has resonated with audiences because it portrays medicine as both heroic and deeply human. It doesn't shy away from showing the emotional toll of saving lives or the mistakes that haunt doctors. With its blend of fast-paced emergencies, ongoing character arcs, and timely social issues, it keeps viewers invested in both the medical cases and the personal dramas of its cast. Dr. Halstead's exit was one of the show's most emotional moments. After years of giving everything to the hospital, Will finally decided he needed a new start. His departure left a huge hole, not just in the ED, but in fans' hearts too. But now, the moment we've all been waiting for, Dr. Halstead is back. His return promises fresh drama, old rivalries reigniting, and maybe, just maybe, a second chance at love. The ED feels complete again, and we can't wait to see what's next for him and the entire Chicago Med team. And that's our journey through Chicago Med, a show that reminds us that behind every case file is a story, and behind every doctor is a beating heart. If you loved this deep dive, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments which Chicago Med moment still gives you goosebumps and what you hope to see from Dr. Halstead's return. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time at Gaffney Chicago Medical Center.